All right, guys. Picking up where we left off. We're still on chapter 9, right? We're talking about spanning tree protocol concepts, right? And so where we left off, we just finished up the spanning tree section, and we're jumping into rapid spanning tree, right? So 802.1 W, right? And so, of course, right? We started off back in the day. We got spanning trees, so of course on redundant links, there was a way so that we can go ahead and block loops from happening within the network, from reoccurring frames going to the same host or what have you, right? Let me go ahead and turn that off. Um, Sorry about that, guys. Right? And so, what is some of the comparisons, right? Whenever we compare spanning tree and a rapid spanning tree, right? So rapid spanning tree and spanning tree, of course, right? They still elect a root switch, right? Using the same rules and the same tiebreakers, right? Rapid spanning tree and spanning tree, those switches, non-root switches, they still elect root ports with the same rules. Okay. Rapid spanning tree and spanning tree elect designated ports on each local area network segment with the same rules and tiebreakers. Hopefully, you guys can see where I'm going, right? Rapid spanning tree and spanning tree place each port in either, right? Let me get my pencil, right? They place each port either in a forwarding state, right? Like you guys learned before, or what, right? Or in a blocking state, right? But rapid spanning tree doesn't call it a blocking state. They call it a discarding state. Okay. All right. So, right. So, rapid spanning tree and spanning tree, as you guys can see, they're very heavy similarities, right? But rapid spanning tree it adds a few things, right? It takes away a few things as well, right? So, rapid spanning tree it adds a mechanism by which a switch can replace its root port without any waiting, right, to reach a forwarding state, right? In some conditions, right? Rapid spanning tree adds a also, an additional mechanism to replace a designated port without any waiting to reach a forwarding state in some conditions. Okay, right? So we're getting some enhancements, right? Um, the thing, of course, like I was telling you guys about that rapid spanning tree takes away is that rapid spanning tree lowers the waiting times for cases in which rapid spanning trees must wait for a timer, right? What do I mean by that? Like, let's talk about it, right? For instance, right? Um, let's say we have an instance to where a link fails, right? Where a link fails, but it remains up, right? And this is between a non-root switch. So we're talking about switch two, switch three, right? Switch two or switch three, right? And so um, you know, the link stays up between, the non-root switches and the root, right? But they stop hearing hellos for some reason, right? But it had been hearing it in the past, right? Spanning tree requires that switch to wait for the max age timer that you guys learned about last session, right? Which of course you guys learned that max age timer is 10 times the hello. So if the default is 2, the max age timer, that switch is waiting for 20 seconds, right? To hear a hello. Okay. What rapid spanning tree does, right? It shortens that timer, right? And defining max age has 3 times the allow, right? Instead of 10 times, 3 times. Okay. So additionally, right, rapid spanning tree can also send messages to neighboring switches, okay, to inquire whether a problem has occurred rather than wait for timers. So we have a link up, but we stop hearing hellos. Rapid spanning tree implemented within a spanning tree topology, it can say, hey, switch three, right? Switch two can reach out to switch three. Hey, is there an issue within the network? Right? And so it would go ahead and inquire, right, whether there's a problem rather than wait for any timers, right? And once it does that, it'll go ahead and know when to go ahead and make a decision. Okay. So right? So with these mechanisms I just explained, right? The best way to go ahead and get a sense of these mechanisms is to see how the rapid spanning tree, and this is a new port role, the rapid spanning tree alternate port and the backup port both work, right? What are those ports, right? So rapid spanning tree uses the term alternate port to refer to a switch's other ports that can be used if a root port fails. Okay? Alternate, and if we're talking about rapid spanning tree, an alternate port refers to a switch's other ports, port or ports, right? That can be used as the root port if the root port ever fails. Okay? The backup port, right? That concept, the backup port provides a backup port, right? As it sounds, on a local switch that is designated, that is for a designated port. So if a designated port, let's say, right, we go to a non-root switch, right? We have a designated port and we have a backup port, right? Probably wouldn't work like that. Probably wouldn't be like that. It'd probably be another port to the same switch. But again, I just want you guys to take a look at this, right? If we had a designated port, we have another line that's a designated port. Okay. That's the designated port, but we have another line to it, and that's the backup port. If this fails, immediately that backup port is going to become the designated port. Okay. All right. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Right. So let's talk about what we've just discussed. Right. And let me give you guys a little graph so it can go ahead and make a bit of sense. Okay. So, so we can go ahead and discuss it, right? So a root port, right? That port role, it is the port that begins a non-root switch's best path to the root. And we talked about the elections and discussions, what have you, right? An alternate port as it pertains to rapid spanning tree. It's a port that replaces the root port when the root port fails. Okay. A designated port, a switch port designated to forward onto a collision domain. Okay. A backup port, a port that replaces a designated port when a designated port fails. Okay. And a disabled port, okay, is a port that is administratively disabled. So, DeMarco, if you log into a switch and you administratively disable the port, that is a disabled port. Okay. All right. Right. So rapid spanning tree, as you guys can see, they differ in a few ways from regular spanning tree and what have you. Right. For instance, um, with spanning tree, the root switch creates a hello with all other switches, right? They're going to send a hello, they're going to update the hello, and they're going to forward the hello. The rapid spanning tree, each, and this is very important, right? Not just for the exam, but of course, for your network engineering journey, okay? With spanning tree, I'm going to go back from the beginning. Regular spanning tree, that root switch is the only switch that creates that hello and updates the hello, right? All of the switches forward it, what have you. With rapid spanning tree, each switch independently generates its own hellos. Okay. Additionally, rapid spanning tree allows for queries between neighbors rather than waiting on timers to expire as a means to avoid waiting to learn information. Okay. All right. And then that goes hand in hand with the hellos being sent, right? These type of protocols, they change. These type of protocol changes, they help RSTP based switches isolate what is changed in a network, right? Which of course helps convergence, which you guys learned before, which helps convergence change within this new protocol. Okay, so I want you guys to heavily read page 230, which goes in depth of RSTP and the alternate port role in depth. And of course, that goes over RSTP and the backup port role, right? Um, a lot of similarities, but I want you guys to understand it, right? Um, we've talked about um, we haven't talked about yet. The next session, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about some of the optional spanning tree features. We're going to talk about ether channel. we're going to talk about port fast, and we're going to talk about BPDU guard. These are some optional spanning tree features that you can implement within your topology. Um, of course, you have to know about it for the exam. You guys should see it within your book for the "Do I know this already?" questions. But I also want you guys to know this for the future whenever you guys become network engineers and network security engineers. Okay. With that being said, I'll go and end it here, and I will see you guys in the next session.
All right, thanks, Dave.
No problem.